All right, so get ready to dive deep today because we are hitting the road, metaphorically, of course, to explore a classic piece of American folklore.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we're talking about the Vanishing Hitchhiker. Um,
Oh, I love this
I
one.
know, right? It's such a good one. And to help us unpack all the different layers and variations
Sure.
and really get into like why this story has stuck around for so long, we are going to be using Jan Harold Brunvan's book,
Oh, excellent choice.
The Vanishing Hitchhiker, America's Most Haunted Urban Legend.
Classic.
It's a classic, yeah. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I mean, what's your take on this? Like, why do you think we're still so fascinated by these stories, after all this time?
Well, I think Brunvan really nails it in the book. I mean, he says that these legends, they aren't just campfire stories. They're
Hmm.
kind of like these reflections of like our deepest fears.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so like what we're scared of as a society kind of shapes how the stories.
Exactly. Think about it. Every time we hear a vanishing hitchhiker story, we're also hearing these like whispers, right? About who we can trust, the dangers that are out there, and like the whole mystery of life and death.
Yeah, that totally makes
Oh, it's
sense.
all baked in.
Yeah, it's not just a spooky story. It's like
Right.
it's hitting on something deeper.
It's tapping into something deeper. Exactly.
So let's jump into one of the examples from the book.
Yeah.
This one's from 1930s Oklahoma. Um, and the story goes that this couple is driving late at night, right?
Yeah.
And they see this young woman on the side of the road. So they pick her up,
Mm.
and she's like, oh, I just live down the road. Thanks for the ride.
Yeah. Classic hitchhiker setup.
Exactly. Classic setup. But then, poof, she's gone. Just vanished from the back seat.
Ooh, spooky.
I know. And all that's left is this little purse. And later, they find out that the purse belonged to a girl who died in a car crash on that same stretch of road.
No way.
Years earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like what's going on there?
Oh, that's a classic vanishing hitchhiker motif right there. I mean, it plays on that primal fear of the unknown, right? Like something is just not right.
Yeah, yeah.
But it also, I think, it introduces this concept of liminal space.
Liminal space.
Yeah, like a threshold between two worlds.
Okay.
The hitchhiker becomes this figure who can kind of cross over that threshold,
That's creepy.
right? So you've got the living and the dead, the real and the supernatural all kind of blurred together.
And you're just driving along, and suddenly you're in the middle of it.
Exactly. And you don't even know it until it's too late.
So we've got this fear, we've got this mystery, but Brunvan also talks about how the hitchhiker can be a symbol.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this legend so fascinating, right? It's not static. It evolves over time.
So how does the hitchhiker, as a symbol, how does that change?
Well, like in earlier versions of the story, the hitchhiker is often a woman.
Okay.
And, back then that reflected a lot of anxieties about female independence and vulnerability, especially on the open road.
That's interesting. Because it was unusual for women to be.
Exactly. It was unusual to see a woman alone hitchhiking.
Yeah.
So that in itself creates a sense of mystery and maybe even fear.
Okay, so as time goes on, how
Yeah.
does that symbol change?
Well, fast forward to like the mid 20th century, car culture explodes, anxieties about strangers on the rise,
Mm.
and the hitchhiker can become a more ambiguous figure. It could be a man or a woman, young or old.
Right, so it's less about gender, more about just anyone.
Exactly. And they come to represent this kind of like faceless danger,
Yeah.
the kind that could be lurking anywhere.
Yeah, the danger of not knowing who you're picking up.
Right. And not knowing what they're capable of.
Oh, that reminds me of another variation that Brunvan talks about. The hitchhikers who give warnings or prophecies.
Oh, yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Me too. There's this one from like 1950s Pennsylvania where this young guy picks up a hitchhiker. And the hitchhiker's like, hey, watch out. There's a deadly rock slide up ahead.
Oh, wow.
So the guy, he's like, okay. He heeds the warning, avoids the rock slide, and then he turns to thank the hitchhiker. Gone. Vanished.
Classic.
Right. So what do we make of those kinds of stories?
Well, I think that's where the legend takes on this almost supernatural dimension. It's not just about fear anymore, right?
Right.
It's about seeking guidance, maybe even wisdom from the unknown. Like we're trying to make sense of a world that feels increasingly unpredictable.
Okay, so it's like we need help, and maybe these mysterious figures can provide it.
Yeah, even if it's just a warning of danger.
So we've got all these elements, the fear, the mystery, the warnings. Why do you think these stories have resonated for so long? Like, what is it about the vanishing hitchhiker that keeps us coming back?
I think it's that unresolved mystery.
Okay.
It just hooks us. Like, we have this natural curiosity, this desire for answers, and these stories, they give us these puzzles, these tantalizing puzzles, but with no easy solutions.
Yeah, they make you think.
Exactly. So we're left pondering, did the hitchhiker even exist? Where did they go?
It's like the story plants a seed of doubt, and we just can't help but let it grow in our imagination.
Exactly. And that's what keeps the legend alive.
But I think there's also something, I don't know, powerful, I guess, about this whole idea of encountering a stranger on the road. Like, what does that symbolize for us, do you think?
I think it speaks to something very fundamental about being human. Like, we have this need for connection,
Yeah,
but we also have this fear of the unknown.
that's so true.
And the open road, right? It symbolizes freedom, possibility,
Yeah.
but it can also be a place of danger and uncertainty.
Yeah, and the hitchhiker is right there in the middle of it all.
Exactly. They embody that duality, the hope of connection and the fear of what might happen.
Oh, so it's like this push and pull, this tension between what we want and what we're afraid of.
Exactly. And I think that's at the heart of this legend and why it stays with us.
So the Vanishing Hitchhiker, it can be a ghost story, a cautionary tale, even a reflection of our anxieties.
Mm,
But one thing's for sure, it's a story that just keeps fascinating us.
absolutely. It's a story that stays with you.
Yeah, long after you've heard it. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, I'm curious, what part of the Vanishing Hitchhiker resonates most with you?
That's a great question. What about you?
I think for me, it's that element of the unknown, the mystery. Like, did it really happen? Is it just a story? I love that we'll never really know for sure.
I can see that. It definitely leaves you with more questions than answers.
Yeah, exactly. And for our listeners out there, as you continue on your own journeys, maybe think about what grabs you the most about these stories. Is it the mystery? Is it the symbolism? Or maybe it's something else entirely, and see what those things tell you about your own fears and hopes.
Yeah, because these stories, they can be like little windows into ourselves if we're willing to look.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and maybe, just maybe, keep an eye out for those mysterious figures on the side of the road. You never know who you might meet.
Or who might disappear.
Or who might disappear, exactly. All right, see you next time.
Bye.